Chris, how was your pee break?
My pee break.
It might flash you undetected.
Random baby.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me. Quite an intro.
Let's address the elephant in the room. That's not the elephant in the room. There's no elephant. Nobody cares.
I too am a thought criminal. Good. Well, I like you already.
Does this look like a girl who's joking around?
No.
Around?
But how much do you actually understand money? Especially the new wave.
Beauty or intelligence? When you unleash both, it is men's kryptonite. Welcome to Talk to Me, Taylor. Good evening, everybody, on this Thursday night. Let's just cut this shit, okay? Actually, not that we never didn't cut the shit on this show, but and I see you guys in the comments. Hello, thank you for joining. We are going to be intellectually stimulated tonight, okay? When I say cut the shit, let's just be real, okay? The internet has, as great as it is, and all the platitude, the blah 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 community, yeah. But it's really, it's done mess shit up, and it's disrupted a lot. Not only my sense of sanity, well-being, common sense in the world. The internet has also disrupted science. And regardless of how this conversation goes tonight, I don't think that there is anybody with a pulse on this orbiting rock who would disagree with that. And this is going to be a really fun conversation. Actually, my two guests are backstage and they are watching this intro here, and I'm sparing everybody. I'm so glad that they are coming into the chat tonight, because speaking of the internet disrupting everything, it is sparing you the scathing unhinged rant I was going to do on influencer culture, but I might pop up and do that tomorrow night. Speaking of, actually, what's pertaining to this conversation, what's real and not real. So right on the nose. But with me, I have the authors behind the book, How the Internet Disrupted Science. And we have Ken Anderson. These, by the way, both of them have a lengthy street cred. So I have highlights here. Ken is behind the Webby-nominated Scholarly Kitchen, which is a big deal. I had to give a shout out to this because I am a New England girl, tried and true, go Pats, that he was the publishing director of the New England Journal of Medicine, amongst many other accolades. We also have Joy Moore, who is a vet, and her bio says back when fax was a thing, if you can imagine that, but building digital publishing. I imagine for many of scientific institutions back in the very cusp of the internet. So they're here tonight to talk all about how the tech lords, AI, big tech, the institutions that the powers that be have, like I said, really done and messed stuff up. And now we don't know what is real, what is not, the censorship, what's a healthy distrust, and really, again, knowing what's real. So without further ado, we already got some questions for them. We got, wait, hang on. I'm not going to keep you, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, I promise. We have Tech Taylor here. Alas!
Yeah, way to go.
Welcome. We already have a question. Kent, New England, which state?
Massachusetts. We're actually both in Massachusetts today, just in different parts of it.
Oh, okay.
Representing Marblehead.
I'm from Connecticut, but you'll have to give some love to my stomping grounds of New England on the whole. So, guys, let's just go right into this, right? It's funny because I've had a lot of disruptors in this space, thought leaders, some very controversial, provocative. Usually you know where they stand. And with you guys, I'm not going to lie. I read your bios. I read all about the book. And I thought, I don't know where they stand on things. I don't know if they're, say, like the pro-Fauci, the anti-Fauci, you know the drill.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's part of the problem. So take it away and just hop right in. I mean, when this gets, and I'll leave this, by the way, up to the audience for them to decide. Let's just have the dialogue and jump right in. Like, when all of this does get political, who does it hurt the most? And again, is that part of the problem?
Yeah, I think even the fact that it has gotten political is part of the disruption in a way, because science communication is typically between scientists. That's how it all sort of started, was they wanted to compare notes and find out who was doing interesting things in their field, and then, make new discoveries. And then it gradually, with the internet and the scale of it and the social media and the attention economy, it became something where everybody started to battle for those kind of vibes. And then various people started to find opportunities to insert themselves, to misdirect people, and to pump in pseudoscience and pump in misinformation, and kind of confuse things in a way that they would hopefully find useful, and a lot of them have found it useful, unfortunately.
So, Enjoy, before you hop in, even just from that, it seems like not to just suck all of the nuance out of everything that is true and good, which the internet does. It seems like out of the gate, you really are not for everybody deeming themselves, even AI, hell, robots, whatever it is, deeming themselves experts, and that muddling the waters in and of itself. And that is the crux of the issue here.
Yeah, the idea of putting everything online and making it available to anybody who can access it kind of came with this like late 90s, early 2000s idea of like, what can the internet do? And we're going to get all these brains and all these problems, and we're going to solve more problems, and we're going to advance science. And we've seen the opposite. Like, making scientific information available and free to non-experts has caused probably more problems than it has solved. And that's just a real hard thing to kind of put back. You can't put the toothpaste back in the bottle, right? Once everyone's told to do their own research, and now everything is being in AI, and you can look up, your medical symptoms or your climate change theories in ChatGPT, etc. But the information that it's based on, that it's drawing from, is not the same as it used to be in terms of how it's been vetted.
Yeah, and one of the big changes was to make the information available at scale on the internet, to make it free. Information wants to be free.
Right.
They had to change the business model, so the producer pays, and it basically became the internet's advertising model. So articles became advertisements gradually over time, and now they're explicitly advertisements. So you can see them being used by companies selling all sorts of things, peptides and AG1 and Armra, bovine colostrum powder, and all sorts of stuff. They can pay to play in the scientific literature, because that was the fundamental money change. It used to be that people would pay to get relevant information that was high quality enough, and then the publishers were accountable to those people. Now they're not accountable to anybody, and anything they publish, they just can get a transaction, bank that money, and move on. And so it's become a scale game. And then with COVID, a lot of people who were, looking for opportunities to get, because they were upset about COVID and they had their little theories and everything, they learned that they could pay to publish those things. And so it's really took off from COVID on.
So it seems to me that you don't even really mind, because that's what I've argued from the beginning. I mean, I'm no scientist myself. I was an AP Chem, but my science history kind of ended there. But the argument is always, that's the point, right? Is to have the discourse and to evolve and to learn more. However, it seems to me you're saying, we don't care. That's the point. Even if I deeply disagree with this scientist, that scientist, let the scientists battle it out, and then come to the public with their findings. Now it's just the Wild West. And I'll do you one better, Ken. In addition to advertising, it's also become so corrupt because we've found big tech in bed with the government, in bed with there's so much distrust and even clout and for numbers, right? So there's all these things at play where, again, everybody is a self-proclaimed expert. But correct me if I'm wrong. Again, like you don't mind if the experts, I'm sorry, duke it out, but like, or go toe to toe. But again, I don't know if there's putting a genie back in that bottle, but
yeah. And big tech has played a role. I'm just going to show the cover of the book, by the way.
Sure. No, we love a plug. Go ahead. You can
I'm plugging. All right. So I'll talk over the cover of the book. Look at that. It's such a nice design.
It is.
the big tech has played a big role in this. Chan Zuckerberg Initiative has funded what they call preprint servers, which are places where people can post papers that aren't even peer reviewed, haven't really gone through editorial vetting, and they can post those with, and they're publicly available. And we found those being used to misdirect things, or they'll be incorrect, and then they get absorbed by people on Substack who are pushing various theories and or trying to sell certain things. And so it's, they've funded things. Gates Foundation has funded a lot of things. They've had their thumb on the scale for a while because they view it as a way to science competes with power. And if you can lay claim to the truth function in society, you can get a lot of power, but you have to do it legitimately. They're trying to do it kind of sneakily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're using the form factor of a scientific journal article to say, we found something and we have proven that it is true. And scientific journal articles have never been that. It's always been, like you said, Taylor, it's like, I found something, somebody else is going to learn from it. You might argue with it, we'll build on it. But it's especially since COVID, this idea of the preprint is the unknown science that people are, keeping from you. And so that turns into a lot of conspiracy theories and things like that.
But what happens? Here's the thing, guys, and this is where this whole thing, and I'm sure it grinds your gears so much, it's gotten so twisted, is that you talk about, conspiracy theories and even the censorship, like I mentioned in the intro. Like it really pissed me off when actual scientists of notoriety and huge accomplishments were censored. And I'm like, okay, so a fact checker or Twitter or Facebook knows better than, so say like my friend, Dr. Robert Malone, right? Who was so controversial during that time. Mm-hmm. I just don't think that's okay. And even like the conspiracy theory thing now, Joy, is so twisted up too, because you have so many people going, oh, what do you know? Another conspiracy theory that was, proven right, or that ended up like being right in some way or valid. So that's where this whole thing has just become so confusing, quite frankly. And it's like, how do you know what's real?
Well, I think when you get a scientist competing in the attention economy, that's always a red flag. Whatever their qualifications, you need to have, if somebody's competing for attention, you should have your guard up, because real scientists are working to do real science and figure things out and deal with the practitioners in their space. And so it's always worries me a little bit when I even know a scientist's name. Really, it's like, why are you drawing attention to yourself?
Troy, what do you think?
Yeah, at the celebrity scientist has, emerged in recent years, and most of them are pitching ideas and products that are outside of their wheelhouse. Whereas most scientists are dedicated to a small, like narrow field of discovery, and they work, amongst each other. When you start to get scientific papers and science like thrown in your face as a consumer, like Ken said, that's the time to be like, like what's in it for them and what's going on here.
Just to play devil's advocate and just push back a little, what if there was a scientist who was just passionate about it and thought, and going, I actually have the street cred, I was there, in the weeds, let me tell you all. And again, it's some arbiter in whatever form coming in. Like, how do you reconcile that? What do you make of that?
Well, we've always had scientists like that, right? And ones who at the time, way back, through the ages, who everyone thought was crazy, and then it turns out that they were right. So we're not discounting that is possible, for sure. I think it's just the overwhelming access and kind of in your face pushing of scientific information that is not necessarily about the science or the scientists, but it's more about the platforms who are monetizing the attention, right? And so that's where when you follow the money, it's not, the scientists are not getting wealthy off of this, but the layers upon layers of platforms who are pushing this information, people who are selling subscriptions, selling advertisements, et cetera, that's where all the money is.
It is a disease, no pun intended. And it's funny because in the beginning of the show, I talked about how I was going to go on a whole rant, which again, I may do, guys, tomorrow night, like if your ears are ready and if it won't put you in therapy, about influencer culture. But it's the same version of what you're talking about. Who's rewarded, who's pushed, who monetizes, and it's so destructive and it's so toxic.
Well, one of the things that your influencer thing, if you don't mind me jumping in with that reminded me, one of the early, so there was a study published in 1998 in The Lancet about MMR vaccines and autism, right? You know,
I was going to ask you
about it. Yeah. And that same year, Google launched. And so that study was preserved online in a way it never would have been without the digital ecosystem, right? So anybody searching for vaccines would have that study surfaced, even though it was discredited and didn't actually, was a fraudulent study and it was done for bad reasons. It lasted so long on Google, more than almost a decade, that Jenny McCarthy discovered it when her 2.5-year-old son was diagnosed with autism. And she thought, well, it's got to be the vaccines. And then she went on Oprah and made it, so that was kind of the biggest influencer culture explosion that I witnessed early on with all of this. But it took Google to get to the influencer, right? And then the influencer amplified the misinformation that had initially appeared in a little tiny article in a weird section in a scientific journal. And that's kind of the concern we have about the public interface in this attention economy.
So with that being said, and I do want to get back to the vaccine autism out of pure curiosity. This is a conversation I was having offline recently, but for better or worse, there is so much distrust in pharma, be it whatever it is, right? Mostly like financial gain, all of this is the argument, I've wondered this truthfully, guys, do they just want to make us sicker so they can keep having remedies and make more money to profit? And I always am an advocate for asking questions, questioning the institutions and the big machines. Where do you lie, each of you, individually, on drawing that line, right? Of having like a healthy distrust and questioning things, and then also trusting. Is it black and white for you? Or I guess also like, just give us your guidance, because people are lost in the sauce in this right now.
It's definitely not black and white. And especially coming from the scientific journal publishing industry, where relationships with pharma companies is very important. So they need to use journals, they need to work with scientists to validate their claims in order to get their drugs approved. They sponsor a lot of things. They give money to a lot of investigators and things like that. At the same time, they are not going to invest in drugs that are not going to sell. They are going to, stop discovery when they're not going to make a profit. And the amount of work that goes into pharma research far surpasses what goes into supplements and alternative medicine. And so we can be skeptical of pharma, but the alternatives are a lot less known and a lot less regulated. So you really don't know what you're getting.
Yeah. And I think that's, if we had a regulatory scheme for anything you put in your body, goes through the same process of approval, disclosure, testing, purity testing, ingredient testing, all of those things, then you could say there's an equivalency. But, pharma does have, drug studies can be problematic. Pharma has been caught, with their thumb on the scale, and I try to take as few as possible. And I think the human body is amazing and pretty much handles its shit well, both literally and figuratively. And so you don't really need much, right?
You said it before I did.
I know I'd have to beat you to that one. But what's interesting is that the supplements and nutraceutical markets and all of those things that are kind of pushing themselves out and pointing at pharma and saying, oh, that bad pharma, those markets are actually bigger. They're less regulated. They're finding more impurities. They're causing, emergency room admissions themselves because of the problems that they have. And, they're using the scientific literature to get this kind of false credibility. One of the Armra, the bovine colostrum powder company, 85% of the studies they cite on their website were pay-to-play publishing. And so I think one of the things for people to look at is if somebody's making these scientific claims, see if they paid to publish those findings, if they're scientists or workers, just employees or CEOs, were authors on those papers or paid for the bundle of papers, because that's what's happening in a lot of cases. And that would never happen with a pharma paper without a lot of disclosure and it's, I mean, I shouldn't say never, it happens. But typically they're independent scientists and they're, very, very heavily scrutinized because the journals market is very aware of the problems with those.
It is, just to bring us back to the beginning, it's so unfortunate that the whole thing has become so politicized. I mean, I'm going to be so transparent with you guys. And I think I'm one of so many who feel this way, right? Even during the pandemic, I know we've suppressed it in like our purgatorial nightmares now, but even the idea, I'm just a weirdo, right? I'm that girl. I don't like stuff in my body. I don't do Botox unless I have a sledgehammer piercing headache. I won't take Advil. Like, I'm that person. So when it came to, say, mandatory vaccines that were rushed, that we don't know how, I said I want to have babies. Well, my babies have 3 heads, people vaccine injured, all these things. Again, it's just really has created this environment of such distrust, and it makes me sad.
Well, I want to say something about vaccines, just really quickly, if you don't mind, Taylor. So one of the things, go ahead.
Just to wrap that up is, it's unfortunate because every person is who hurts. Maybe if they're not getting the right care, information, whatever it is, or the labels, it's like you're a kooky conspirator, this, that, the other thing, right? And it's like, can we just get to what's real? And that's,
Yeah. And one thing about vaccines that I think public health communication right now is pretty terrible for a variety of reasons. There are people trying to do it well, but they're so on their back foot because of various things going on in the digital space that they can't do the nice proactive communication. But one thing about vaccines is, one of the most corrosive aspects of communication around those has been, it's my body, my choice. Vaccination is a population-based intervention. You have to reach a certain percentage of the population being vaccinated for everybody to benefit from it. And you're seeing that with measles right now, right? The measles rate in the United States is going through the roof just because of a few percentage points loss in vaccination rate, because measles is so transmissible. So it really is, it's kind of like if everybody wears their seat belts, right? Traffic fatalities fall, for everybody's safer, right? And nobody feels as guilty. It's the same with vaccines. It's really not it's a population-based public health intervention for it to work. And I think people, the better they understand that this is a matter of do unto others as you would have them do unto you kind of thing, a golden rule thing, where it's like, I'll get a vaccine so that I'm not going to be the one passing you a disease, right?
I promise that I am not trying to bust your guys' balls. I'm just asking because it's just to have the discourse, which I very much appreciate. Again, this is something that really, even at the time, it's like all coming back to me. But being really pissed off, quite frankly, because I didn't want to get it. I got it. And I was told, you know, again, stop the spread, but then I still got it or gave it. And it's like, okay, it's like the goalpost was always moving. And, you know, that's kind of part one, but part two, and I know we have to wrap soon. My fiance actually grew up Christian Science. And if you know anything about it, no medicine, no nothing. Very traumatizing. And with that, though, I always say that he is literally like Superman. He's twice my age and is in such great shape because he has such a built up immunity and had everything. I mean, you name it. So is there something to be said about that as well? That's maybe like some validity to the skeptics going like, do I just expose myself raw, so to speak?
I mean, well, there's always the dead men tell no tales aspect of disease survival, right? You're not hearing from the people who caught it and died. So you have to remember that. But also, I think mRNA vaccines, the story of those was not told well because of the environment where they came out. They actually started in the late 80s, the research on them. And they were gradually funded and tested and all of these things. So they were because they were afraid of a pandemic, because SARS and MERS and H1N1 and H1N5 and all these diseases were coming out of China and South America, you know, all the planners and DARPA and other places were like, we're going to have a pandemic and we need to get this vaccine technology in good shape. And it was ready. And, you know, you will still get, you know, you will still get a COVID because there's going to be a slight mismatch, but it's going to be less severe. You're not going to be hospitalized. You're not going to be, you know, taking up a bed in the hospital and adding burden to the healthcare system and making it harder for somebody who's having a heart attack to get into the hospital. That's one of the big benefits of just having to make everything milder.
And as we wrap, I just want to say, to be sure, Ken and I are neither scientists nor doctors nor healthcare professionals.
Thanks for the disclaimer.
But what we are hoping to achieve by having written this book and talking about the things that we do understand very well is the spread of scientific information, misinformation, pseudoscience that can all be tracked. There's incentives and disincentives for good information and bad information that's happening all around us in this very particular niche little, you know, corner of the publishing market that most people don't understand. And so that is our goal, is to say, look, what you're getting in your feed, whether it's for or against, it's coming from somewhere. And let's look at where it's coming from and who's benefiting from you getting that information, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent.
Thank you for bringing us back to that. That's a really great way to wrap this up. Like, your guys is really the ethos and the mission statement of what you're doing. And with that, I have two kind of rapid fire, although I think I know what you're going to say for this first one. The first one is, who or which entity is doing the most damage to scientific information on the whole? Okay. Influencers, politicians, legacy media, or big tech?
I would say both of the last two.
Okay.
Together.
Legacy media and big tech. And that was kind of like the pay to play, all of that, like advertising, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Same thing, Joy, for you?
Yeah, I would definitely big tech, followed by the influencers. They've kind of, you know, big tech paved the road and the influencers are driving the Ferraris down.
Right. Yeah. Big tech walk so influencers could run. Yeah. Okay. I know this is big, but again, I'm itching. I have to ask. I'm having no discipline here, contrary to what my producer says. Okay. The Jenny McCarthy thing, the rise of, you know, autism and vaccines, not to get too much into it. I wondered this. Do you think that autism is genuinely going up because we hear about it so much more prevalent, or are we just overdiagnosing and nitpicking more? Has it always sort of been there?
Neither.
Okay.
So I think what it is the diagnostic criteria have broadened so much that everything that you're just capturing more cases of it. And also it's been destigmatized to a large degree so that more, you know, school nurses or healthcare workers or parents are asking about it. And, could this be, and it's being diagnosed. And then there are, paraprofessionals in schools to help with it and all this stuff. The other part of it is there also was for a good amount of time, and they found this correlation, financial benefits. If you had a child diagnosed with autism, you could get state aid. And they found that when that state aid went into effect, all of a sudden autism diagnoses went up like a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, diagnoses and the coding that goes with diagnoses of all stripes, right? Not just, within psychiatric, but medical diagnoses come with dollar signs. There's a lot of money to be made by getting diagnosed. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Last but not least, again, I'm actually going to kick this to either of you, whoever wants to grab the baton, because then I have to wrap with all this. And guys, remember their book, How the Internet Disrupted Science, is available. If you want to give it, there we go. We got a visual going on here from Kent. Last thing for either of you, whoever wants to take it, with all of this, what is one thing that everybody should and can agree on?
Scientists who do real science are working in your best interest, no matter what anybody else tells you.
Agree.
Okay, we got a nod from Ken. Ken concurs. Ken Anderson, Joy Moore, How the Internet Disrupted Science. Thank you guys so much. And thank you for, I appreciate you going with me on pushing back a little bit. But hey, that's what Discovery is all about, right?
Absolutely. We love it.
So, appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And everybody else, I may or may not see you tomorrow night, if definitely not the next week. All right. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Taylor.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Chris, how is your piece ready? They might flash you on TikTok. Yeah.
Thanks for having me. Quite an intro.
Let's address the elephant in the room. That's not the elephant in the room. There's no elephant. Nobody cares.
And I too am a thought criminal. Good. Well, I like you already.
Does this look like a girl who's joking around?
No.
But how much do you actually understand money? Especially the new wave.
Beauty or intelligence? When you unleash both, it is men's kryptonite. Welcome to Talk to Me, Taylor.